and dogs were pretty much low on that. I'm going to show you respect kind of thing, because they had no real use. They were of no value, and so to call someone a dog was a great derogatory description, or a way to call them a dirty name. Yeah.
Well, for 2,000 years, it's about they were. I mean, the Jews were God's people.
Mm-hmm.
So the Gentiles do it.
Yeah.
I mean, it just seemed like, I don't know how to say it. They
Okay.
were left out.
Well, and this gets way deeper, what Jamie brings up, because the intention that God had was for the Jews to be the light to the Gentiles, to be the ones who would be His light bearers and bring that message of hope and of God to even the Gentile world. And the Jews never really understood that or grasped that idea of them being a light. They were always arrogant and self-absorbed, and well, I won't use any more adjectives to describe them, but you get the idea. They were always looking about what was in it for them rather than looking at what God wanted them to do. And so when they interacted with Gentiles, there was no God in their action. There was no God in the way they treated them. There was no kindness or love or any compassion or understanding. They hated the Gentiles. They were unclean, they were dirty, and they called them the worst name they could think of. Probably some others that were worse, but it was pretty bad to call them dogs. And God never intended for them to be the ones who would look at themselves with such pride and arrogance because we have God's blessing or we have Abraham's blood in us. He never intended for them to have that kind of arrogance and that kind of pride that was sinful. It was never His intention. Mm-hmm.
So what he's talking about is, I need to teach my disciples, the children, and then we go to the pets.
Mm-hmm.
The other members of the household with the pets.
Okay. Yeah, and I think the meaning's still pretty much the same, even if he's just talking about the disciples, but it's very likely he's talking about my people. So that could be general, my people. I should take care of my people first, and then if there's any time or if there's any leftover or if there's opportunity, then I should take care of the dogs.
That's the reason why the Holy Spirit gave all the information about the Gentiles.
Exactly, yeah. Yeah, Jamie's observation that it's no accident that if we had never gotten that information, then we wouldn't understand this conversation at all. It just wouldn't make sense. So we now understand that as Jesus responds to her when she begs Him to cast out the evil spirit from her little girl, then His response is, let my children be fed first, for it's not right for the children's bread to be thrown to the dogs. Don't let my children go without and feed the dogs. So that would be, as Ryan's already shown, that would be something that she might expect a regular Jew to say. If she asked a regular Jew, a Jew on the street, if she asked them for anything, they would turn up their nose and they would probably, as they're walking away, say, it is not right for me to give those that are unrighteous anything. I'll go give the righteous what's right and good, and not the unrighteous. Not you unclean. I won't give you anything. But Jesus' intention was never that. It was never to hurt. It was never to be hateful or derogatory toward her. He's trying to make a very significant point about the Jewish attitude and how now that He is the King who brings the kingdom, that this kingdom is going to be for even these folks that you're calling dogs. Even these folks that you're calling dogs, they're going to be included in the kingdom. So look how it progresses then. But she answered, Okay, this follows Jesus' statement. But she answered, "Yes, Lord. Yet even the dogs under the table," that this refers to what Dale was talking about a while ago. This might be those that are household dogs, not the mangy dogs that roam the pit, the garbage dump. Let the dogs, even the dogs under the table, eat the children's crumbs. And he said to her, "For this statement, you may go your way. The demon has left your daughter." And she went home and found the child lying in bed and the demon gone. Okay, so what is it about her response that Jesus would then turn around and say, because of this, because of what you just said, you may go your way now. Your daughter is healed. What is it about her response? All right, it was a statement of faith. It's a response of faith. What else is it about that statement? She recognized him as one who had the power, whether it was the Lord or God in the flesh, that's not the significant point, but she recognized that he had power and authority over this demon to cast out this demon, which says she had a lot more faith than some other folks that might be even in the room with him right there. So her response then is a demonstration, Jamie says, a demonstration of faith. It's a demonstration of her understanding maybe a little bit more about who he is and his power and authority. Anything else you read into that? Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah, great observation. I don't know if you heard Nelson's point or not, but he said in the Gospel of Matthew that there she addresses him as Lord and Master, Son of David, some of that combination depending on your translation. So if you look back in Matthew's account, there seems to be some good information there that she had a grasp even better than some of the disciples did about who he was. That's why she sought him out. That's why she came and found him in this house where he was hiding. That's why she fell at his feet and begged him to heal her daughter, to cast out the demon from her daughter. Yeah, that's basically what she responded, wasn't it? Just the crumbs, all I need. How much faith that took. Understanding that it wasn't going to take a lot of effort from him. Much like the woman who said, if I could just touch the hem of his garment, I'd be healed of my issue of blood. Yeah, it's the same kind of sample of faith, because she's just asking for crumbs, isn't she? She's just asking for crumbs. Mm-hmm. Well, and what I said in the beginning was one of the reasons for Jesus even coming to this Gentile land, not just to find rest, but I think he's trying to make a point that will live in the hearts of the disciples once this takes place, that they're going to have an understanding and a grasp on the fact that these Gentiles are going to be included, maybe not in the very beginning, maybe not fully in the very beginning, but there's going to be this time where they're going to also be given this gospel. Yes, exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. It's for all men, all times, everywhere. It is not limited to a nation any longer. She went home and found the child lying in bed and the demon gone. If you look through the Old Testament, if you look if you look carefully, you'll find that there are a lot of examples of God using people who are not of the nation of Israel to make a point, using them in very significant ways to change the direction of the nation. Probably you're thinking,
Take a hostage for 800 years.
yeah. Right. So there are people who God used to make a point, and you probably think of some of those as Jamie has, that that God would use some of those people that are not of the nation of Israel, that were responsible for the salvation of the nation, responsible for it staying even in existence, and so forth. Yes. Mm-hmm. Well, they were supposed to be that light that would tell the Gentiles and teach the Gentiles and be an example to the Gentiles about who God is and teach them about God. Now, whether that meant bring them in as proselytes into Judaism, I think that's kind of unclear. But the whole idea of them being the light to the world and being an influence in the world and showing God to the world, they just never really did that. God did it himself, but the Gentiles didn't do that. No, oh no, not at all. Yeah. Yeah. Well, you see the conversation now, because of what's happened in Israel, has gone back to this whole idea of Israel being God's chosen people and all of that, and we have to remember that once Jesus Christ was born, and once everything was executed that was in God's plan to bring His kingdom into be a reality, that the Jewish nation's responsibility and their relationship with God changed. There was no need for the temple. There was no need for the priesthood. There was no need for sacrifices. There was no need for that whole Jewish system any longer. So what was ushered in by the death, burial, and resurrection of Jesus was the church age. And in that church age, God had promised that the Jews would have first hearing of the gospel message, and they did. He promised that they would be given that opportunity first, and they were. After that, and once the gospel then began to go to the Gentiles, everybody under God's reign and God's rule is equal. There's no longer a role that the Jews or the nation of Israel plays in the future or in the present that is special or unique or wonderfully blessed by God, because everybody now stands on equal ground before God by the blood of Jesus Christ. So there's a lot of talk, and there's a lot of importance that Israel holds in the whole grand scheme of the safety of the world, but it doesn't hinge on how God's going to use them in the present or in the future, because they've done their duty. All right, any other observations about this story about the Syrophoenician woman and the casting out of the demons? Exactly, yeah. And I think everybody that has children understands that, even some that don't understand that kind of determination that you're going to do whatever is necessary. You're going to do everything you can. And I think, like Jamie mentioned, I think the connection between the woman who had the issue of blood and this woman are very much the same. And that is a faith that brought them to the only place they knew to turn. And they both had a faith in this Jesus, in this Son of God, some faith, I don't know how much, but they had some faith, and it was a great faith that brought them there. And then she's not going to let it go. It says she fell at his feet and begged him. Begged him. Okay, anything else? All right, look at the next one. This is the healing of the deaf man. By the way, that's the reward of persistent faith. If you want to make an application or something, if you really want to, what does all this mean to us? You can talk about the reward of persistent or consistent faith. One who understands who Jesus is, and this persistence, this continual faith that leads you and moves you to Jesus, through whom you find the blessings that you're seeking, and you find that blessing that you need. And obviously that blessing is the blessing of salvation. So you have verse 31 beginning. Mark kind of continues this idea of the ministry of Jesus to those who are not Israelites, verses 31 through 37. Let me just read those. Then he returned from the region of Tyre and went through Sidon to the Sea of Galilee in the region of the Decapolis. And they brought to him a man who was deaf and had a speech impediment, and they begged him to lay his hands on him. And taking him aside from the crowd privately, he put his fingers into his ears, and after spitting, touched his tongue and looked up to heaven. He sighed and said to him, Ephphatha, and this is, be opened. And his ears were opened, and his tongue was released, and he spoke plainly. And Jesus charged them to tell no one, but the more he charged them, the more zealously they proclaimed it, and they were astonished beyond measure, saying, He has done all things well. He even makes the deaf hear and the mute speak. That's a very simple, straightforward story. What seems to be the highlight of it is the end, because it ends the way many of the stories early in the Gospel of Mark ended, and that was with the folks being astonished. That's the word that's used here in verse 37. And they were astonished beyond measure. Now that was a healing of a man who was deaf, and it says he also had this speech impediment. And I don't know who they is, and they brought him a man. My mind really runs when it says they here, and then he says, and Jesus charged them to tell no one. But the more he charged them, the more zealously they proclaimed it. I want to know who they are. I want to know who they are. Who is it that had this faith that they brought this man to Jesus? And so anyway, the end of it and the result of this is that the reign of righteousness and the reign of God is near, and the establishment of the kingdom is near. And Jesus is going about proving and demonstrating by his miracles that he has a power that can only come from one source, and that comes from God. What's the result? When people see it, verse 37, and they were greatly astonished beyond measure. I think the method that Jesus used to heal the man and the way that he did it I don't know any way to describe or explain or to make any application with that other than to say that Jesus did that for those that maybe were watching, because other times he's healed by speaking a word. He's healed from a distance, like he did this Syrophoenician woman's daughter. Go home, your daughter's healed. So is it for the benefit of those who are watching that he puts fingers in the ear and touched his tongue and all of that, and then speaks, be opened, and his ears are open, his tongue was released, and he spoke plainly? Obviously, this man had been in this condition for a time so that it wasn't going to be an accident, or it wasn't going to be some magic trick or something that could be done. So everybody knew that there was a miraculous healing that had taken place. And Jesus says, don't tell anybody. But the more he said that, the more zealously they proclaimed it. Because, why? They were astonished. Now, don't forget that, but that word and that idea is one of those major themes all the way through the Gospel of Mark that we've seen. We're just in chapter 7, at the end of chapter 7, and that's one of those things that has been a theme that runs through these 7 chapters of the Gospel of Mark. And when people see, when they hear, when they observe, when they are aware, and when things happen, the result is they are astonished. When they hear him teach, when they see him perform miracles even the words that he said, when they hear him teach, all of those things, all the things that he does, has that same response by some. They are astonished. So let me wrap it up. I got 1 minute. You've got the response of some is, let's kill him. The response of some is, wow, I'm astonished. You've got the response of some that is, I'm astonished, but I'm not going to follow him. You've got the response of some that is, I'm astonished, and I'm going to follow this guy because maybe he'll feed me again. Then you've got some who are astonished and they follow him and they dedicate themselves to him. So where are you? Where are you in this whole scheme of things when it comes to who Jesus is? Are you astonished, but you want to kill him? Or are you astonished and you want to follow him all your days? That seems to be the choices that you're given from the Gospel of Mark as you are from all of the Gospels. All right, we'll start there. Well, I guess we really don't need to pick back up there, but we'll start in chapter 8 next time. Appreciate your comments.